Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Thursday night. Welcome to the Sports Crib. I see all you guys are here in the queue tonight. Don, how you doing? Long time.
Doing good.
Demetrius, glad to have you back.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
What's up, Bill?
Hello there, sir.
Yeah. And tonight we're joined by a new gentleman, Mr. Matthew. Matt, I'm going to let you pronounce your last name. I'm not going to try to butcher it.
It's a very German name, but it's Himmelreich.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Excellent.
Okay. And
which is what, a maker of heaven?
Heavenly Right.
Okay, got it.
There you go.
Okay. Bill is showing us his 1 year of German studies. But guys, let's get this show on the road. Matt, you're from DC?
I am, yes, Virginia. Yep.
Okay. And not a Wizards
like
fan.
Falls Church, like Annandale, like give me a hint.
Manassas, the Shenandoah Valley.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, let's start out with what's on everybody else's lips. Tiger Woods, not only does he want to be a SEAL, but it also seems he likes racing his SUVs. So I guess let's talk about Tiger. Right now, they're saying that at least, he's very coherent. He has multiple leg injuries. Now to go along with those back injuries. So for the most part, I'm probably thinking that Tiger's career is over. But we were, I think, shown the softer side of Tiger before this accident with the tournament with his son and how much he enjoyed that. Probably not going to ever see that Tiger that we said was going to pass Jack. But Bill, let's. Why don't you start off with your thoughts on Tiger?
Well, one, people have lost a lot of money counting Tiger Woods out. So I'm not ready to pull the plug on Eldrick Woods Jr. Now, when he says he's done, I'll believe he's done. He hasn't said he's done yet. So until I hear it from the Tiger's mouth, I'm not pulling the plug on it. Remember, his career was over like 5 or 6 years ago, and then he won another major. So unless they tell me they're cutting his legs off, or he says he's done, I'm not going to say he's done.
Okay, Don, are you optimistic?
Well, believe it or not, and you and I might remember this, these younger people may not. There was a golfer by the name of Bob Hogan.
Bobby Jones, yeah.
Who was in a terrible wreck like that. They said never play again. 2 years later, he won the U.S. Open. So,
yep.
And I think that was in the early 50s when he had his wreck. And medical technology is a lot better in 2021 than it was in that time. So,
53.
I'm like Bill. I'm not ruling out Tiger. I'm not ruling him out. He's not young, but he's younger than I am. So, yeah. Your body responds. And keep in mind, Tiger Woods is like the first golfer who actually worked out. So his body's probably in pretty good shape. If you look back before Tiger Woods, you had like John Daly and Jack Nicklaus, his beer guts hanging out, Fuzzy Zelder. Yeah. But Tiger is the first one that actually went to the gym, had a personal trainer. So, I think he's in better shape than we might think if he wants to come back.
Demetrius?
Yeah. So for me, I'm not. I don't even care. I think he has done everything he needs to do for me. I'm not interested in the conversation. I know 18 is a magic number. To me, I'm a sucker for a redemption story, right? So from like 95 to 2009, he impacted me and people like me so much, it's hard to quantify. The game of golf owes this guy so much, it's ridiculous. So then he went through what can probably only be described as trials and tribulations, right? Self-inflicted for the most part. But I love a redemption story. So what April of 2019 for me was that guy who dug himself a hole, buried himself under that hole, planted flowers on himself, and somehow dug his way out and won the Masters. Because I was monitoring that tournament Friday and Saturday, Thursday and Friday. Saturday you get interested. He's hanging around. I watched every shot on Sunday. Every single shot that Sunday. I didn't leave my house that Sunday. That's what he did for that game. So 18 is great. If he never gets to 18 again, I don't care. I want the guy to be okay. I went into Kobe mode and was like, wait, I saw that truck. Is he okay? If he can walk and play with his kids, I'm good. Because the 18 doesn't matter to me. He transcended all that, right? So if he comes back, I do agree with Don and Bill, and the Ben Hogan story is perfect. I wouldn't rule him out, but he doesn't have to do anything else for me.
Matt, how do you feel?
I probably going to make a lot of golf people mad by saying this, but I don't think golf is a very, physically demanding sport, like on your body. So because my dad played it for a really long time when he was alive. So, and I feel like if anyone, Tiger Woods can come back and play if he wants to. But I agree with Demetrius that, he's kind of proven that he doesn't need to prove anything. So, he's already had one comeback story and came back and won. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did it again. Because I think mentally he can come back from this as well. I feel like the first time he came back, it was a lot mentally harder for him because he did dig his own grave with a lot of personal stuff outside of golf that he did wrong. He wasn't drinking from what I saw in the reports for this one. He wasn't drunk, he wasn't on any medication that he wasn't supposed to be. So I feel like this is an easier thing for him to come back from than it was last time. So if he could do it last time when it was under harder circumstances, I think this time would be, easier for him to do for sure. So I'm definitely not going to count him out. But if he did walk away and say he was fine with what he did, I would be happy with that as well.
Yeah. Well said.
Gentlemen, we're going to start our NFL section of the show. But before we do, let's give 10 seconds of silence for the family of Vincent Jackson. Madam, I'm going to start with you on this one, being the new guy to the show. What's your memories of Vincent Jackson?
It's going to sound bad, but unfortunately, I don't really have, very many memories of him playing just because I didn't, follow his career as being a Rams fan. I kind of, followed that more so than anything else. But when I heard of his passing, it was definitely really sad, especially after Tampa had just won the Super Bowl and everything. With that, to be able to honor his memory. So I can't speak too much on his career because unfortunately I didn't follow it as much as I have other players. But it was a shocker, especially with how young he was, that, it had to happen to someone like that. So definitely really, really unfortunate.
Demetrius, your memories of Vincent Jackson, the family is donating his brain for the study. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, there's a couple of things. It strikes you at how important it is that we continue the study of CTE because there's so much we just don't know, and that is where I leave that statement. We don't know enough. We don't, and I think that for me, there's my own personal memories are fantasy football from selfishly, like in 2012, he was on my team his first year in Tampa. and I think he had like 74 catches, and he carried my team that year. We didn't win it, but he was a really good player for my team. But I remember it striking me that he signed with Tampa, and in his first year there, he was voted a team captain by his teammate, right? And that's the kind of thing that doesn't tell you about the kind of football player, but that's respect in that room. And I've never been in a room like that, not as a player. I think that said a lot. And so when I was going back thinking about it, I thought, wow, that's a big thing. Like, especially in that league, you come in as a new guy on a team and you get elected captain your first year, you just signed. It says something to what those guys thought about you. And in that league, a league of where everyone's tough and getting respect is not easy. He got that kind of respect from his teammates the minute he walked in the door. It says something about who he must have been.
Don?
Yeah, so he was pretty much a transitional player, I think, for Tampa Bay, because he came in, and like Demetrius said, he was a captain. He kind of had Mike Evans as a rookie under his wing, and they put together a pretty good tandem as a receiving corps. I remember I believe he came from a Division II school,
Northern Colorado.
Yeah, one double A.
I remember when I was in college, Northern Colorado was a double A. So, yeah, I mean, he, still came from a small college and came out and made an impact in the NFL. And as far as CT issues, I'm glad his family is making that decision to have that studied. I lost a friend, played for the Atlanta Falcons, Shane Jonette, defensive tackle, defensive end. Same thing, great guy. And then all of a sudden his personality just snapped. He was doing some stuff, and his wife was very worried and had a tragic ending. But I hope there's more research done, more studies. I hope they can find maybe a way to lessen this from happening in the future.
Yeah.
Bill?
I was at the draft 2005 when he was drafted, and he was, quote unquote, one of my guys. I wrote a lot about him. He was a two-sport athlete in Northern Colorado, track and field as well as football. So when you see a guy that size who can move like he could move, that's rare, first of all. I mean, he still pretty much owns the receiving record book in Northern Colorado. If you just look through, I mean, he 3,548 yards in receptions, 37 touchdowns. One of only two players in the program's history to have two 1,000-plus yard receiving seasons. Reed Dowdy, who was his roommate, who also got drafted later in the draft and knocked around the league for a couple of years, talked about him a great deal when they started talking to his old teammates. And they actually met before they ended up at Northern Colorado together at a recruiting visit at a whole other school at Colorado Mines, which is D2 in the RMAC conference.
Okay.
And they knew from that moment that they were going to be together. So when one decided to go to Northern Colorado, the other one decided to go to Northern Colorado. And they decided they were going to room together. And Reed Dowdy has had some beautiful things to say about him. I've been following, Reed Dowdy and what he's had to say. And then he goes to the Chargers originally in 2005. And then, as was pointed out, he ends up getting traded later to Tampa Bay. 9,000-plus receiving yards, 57 touchdowns. But the numbers don't quite encapsulate what he was. Because, as was pointed out, he was a leader everywhere he went, from high school onward. He was a guy that at 14 was 5'5" and 122 pounds.
Wow.
Undergoes a legendary growth spurt, which makes me mad as a 5'7" and 5'8" individual. Where was mine? But he undergoes this radical transformation and becomes this completely different kind of athlete, but retained the movement skills, right? That you sort of look for guys like that. You look for guys like David Robinson, who was 6'3" when he graduated high school, and guys like that retain the neurological pathways that know how to move like a smaller person. That's part of why he was what he was. And then, like I said, the mental toughness, the physical toughness to play in the NFL. I don't care if you're a place kicker. You have to be mentally, physically tough in the NFL. But he was a guy that played receiver, and he played receiver. He was a deep threat, but he also went over the middle. And there were some teams, I don't know if people remember this, that wanted him to bulk up and play tight end, which he probably could have done. But wisely, the teams that he played for did not do that, and he was, such a matchup nightmare as a traditional receiver. And he could play all the receiver positions. He could play, X. He could play the Z, and he could go in, in the slot. He had a very high football IQ. He'd give you really good effort as a blocker downfield. He was a complete football player. Whatever you asked him to do, he did it. And he did it at a high level. And I had started to hear things shortly before. His family had lost contact with him about 16 or so days, I believe, before he was found. And there had been concern, and old teammates and others were sort of putting the word out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and other places saying, hey, if you see my boy, VJ, hit me up. Like you can call the cops if you need to also, but hit me up. Like I want to get there first.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the whole thing about like big, strong black men and why you maybe don't want the police to get there first. But the fact is that his friends and family were extremely worried about him for a couple of weeks prior to this. He'd fallen sort of off the radar. And I can tell you this much, right? I've been around this game a very, 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 very long time. And what we don't know about CTE and the brain as a whole, right, would fill oceans. What we do know, though, is he fits the quote-unquote profile, right? When we look at what happened to, a variety of guys, Andre Waters, the litany, right? The guys that we can name where, their personality changes, they cut off their friends and family, and before we know it, something terrible happens. Junior Seau, it's a list. It's Mike Webster. It's a sad, depressing list. I love this game, right? I don't. Anybody who knows anything about me knows how much I love football, but I love human beings even more. And I really want a no BS, serious, real study, not just a butt covering exercise. I hope there is a serious, multi-year, high school, college, youth football, everybody study of people who undergo these radical behavioral changes and then unfortunately end up passing away. I hope they collect, sadly, probably a lot of brains and study them for a very long time. Now, the last thing I'll say, and I didn't mean to talk this much, I apologize, but there have been some things where they found, even with things like cannabis. So when I say cannabis, I'm not talking about smoking marijuana, but some of the things that have been extracted from marijuana have shown they can actually reduce lesion inside the brain in people that have suffered CTE. Now, it's very early on, and because unfortunately still now the federal government doesn't allow you to openly study marijuana or cannabis derived things because it's still a Title Schedule I narcotic for whatever reason still federally, right? Even if it's legal in your state, the federal government won't let you study it. Right. I'm hoping at some point that we get some movement on these things. And everything should be on the table. Stem cells, whatever. All of it should be on the table.
Absolutely.
Bill, I'm going to start this with you, but I might have to mute you in the middle of it there. But anyway,
do what you got to do, man. I'm a passionate dude, and I get excited. I apologize.
But let's talk about the players' union here for a minute, because it seems like Demetrius Smith has lost the confidence of the union. I think he lost it a few years ago, as far as I'm concerned.
So DeMaurice Smith, right? I don't know if DeMaurice Smith ever fully had the confidence. Let's start with that of the union. I talk to NFL players sometimes, and he's been treated by not everybody, but a lot of the rank and file as essentially a necessary evil, for lack of a better way of putting it. He doesn't have a huge amount of or a great depth or breadth of support. But there's also nobody else right now that they would prefer. So they're in that classic sort of bind, like when you want to fire your coach, but you don't have a better coach coming.
Right.
Oh, right. What do you mean? So until you have a better option, you ride it out with John Gruden or whatever, right? So he there's a handful of people in the union who like him. But I mean, when I say handful, I mean handful, like a small number. Then there's a good number that are kind of like, eh. And then there's a decent size number that no love, zero, like negative love, like strong dislike. I'll put it that way. And if there should emerge, somebody who's a better option, you might see them move on from him.
Yeah.
Don, what do you think when you look at the number of issues that have been in front of the players' union lately?
Well, I'm going to plead ignorance right here because I haven't really been keeping up with the labor situation in the NFL. I know. Yeah.
I mean, I'll take all their time. You might have to me. I got so much to say about this. I got so much to say about this. Whenever you're ready. Sorry, Don. Right. Go ahead.
As they say in Congress, the gentleman from Texas yields his time.
Yes. So
the gentleman from Michigan has to.
Yeah, the gentleman from Michigan and pretend. So here's the thing, and Bill hit on some stuff. I have to piggyback a little, but I studied this a lot. So first of all, it is an impossible situation, right? You're representing 1,500 players who pay dues. The reality is in that league, there's three different kinds of players. There's these superstars who are making astronomical numbers, right? You got a small group of sort of middle, either guys just reaching kind of stardom or descending. The bulk of that league, the bulk of that union are guys that don't make, relatively speaking, don't make that much money, right?
And have 2, 3, 4 year careers.
Their career span is generally 5.7 years or some number. It might not even be that. Less. That might be generous. It's less than that, right? Okay, so if you're D. Smith, you got to negotiate a deal that's going to make all these dudes happy. Not possible. That's the first thing. So then what happens is he is a lawyer by trade. So what he sees is the best. He's generally seeing the best possible outcome for everyone. That's not what his union wants. His union sees this situation as this. If they win, ipso facto, I lose. And that's actually not how it works. So in this last deal, to answer your question directly, Bill already did. There's a small group of players that still have his back, and they all probably make league minimum. Everybody else is about done with him. But he was brilliant in that he got the Constitution changed in that agreement. It's going to be hard to get rid of him. He got changes put in that Constitution so that it's hard to run against him. An outsider can't even run against him right now. He was brilliant because he's a super smart dude. But the league in this last negotiation got everything they wanted. They got the right to get more games, and they got a long agreement, which they can then take to the TV companies and say, we got a decade of labor peace coming, double the so the players look and say, wait, if we're negotiating with them, Bill and I are in negotiation, and Bill smiles and says, I got everything I wanted, I had to lose, right? And there's no other perception than I lost, Bill fleeced me, and he won. And I think that's where, I'm not saying the players are short-sighted because there's three different sets of interest. I believe the most vocal, the most well-known, they can't stand him because in their minds, they got screwed. You're asking us to play more games and get, relatively speaking, a little bit more money. They're going to double their TV deals, almost double them. And they offered their players like 1%. 1% more, and you're doubling your TV money? And when you're talking billions with a B, that is a lot of money. And so the players really are saying, don't give us speeches about CTE and safety of the players and then ask us to play 2 more games. It doesn't work. You just can't do those 2 things, right? It's that whole thing about pee and raining. I know the difference. I know the difference, right? And so at the end of the day, your question is a great one. He lost the people he lost them in this last deal. He lost them big time because the owners got everything they wanted. Everything they wanted. And even though my feeling is the players didn't truly get screwed. The minimum went up 20%. And there's a bunch of guys in that league that are thrilled. They went from making, I don't know, $350 a year to making $650 or almost $6. That's a ton of money for that dude and his wife and his 3 kids. That's not a ton of money for a lot of other guys. But it's going to be hard to get him out. I think he's viewed by a lot of players as a management-friendly negotiator. And I don't know if that's inaccurate. I think it's probably true, but I think he views healthier league at the end of the day is better for my due-paying members, most of whom don't make that much money. But I think it's a there's haves and have-nots in that league, but I think big-time players don't like them, and practice squad guys. Minimum salary guys love them, but you don't know who they are. You can't name those. So does it matter? I don't know. If the 10% of guys that matter can't stand him, but he's kind of sneaky. He had a player rep investigated. He had a player rep investigated by like this law firm. He's playing the game. He's a politician. He's a lawyer. All the things that we don't like. So. But he's not popular with his own guys, and it's going to be interesting. That's a great question, because how this thing unfolds over the next few years with him and that union is going to be very interesting to watch.
Demetrius, do you remember which one of the Pouncey brothers physically threatened him?
Mike. Yep.
It was Mike. Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah, it was Mike. Yep. I mean, like legitimate punches. Which was to beat him up, old school, and it was serious. It was, I guess, what I heard was serious.
Really not a joke. Mike
exactly.
Pouncey's sense of humor
exactly
was not what I'd like anyway. Like, you know what? I don't want to joke around with Mike Pouncey,
right?
But it was clear this was not fun. Like he wanted to do damage to this man.
Yeah. And that thing really was about the league wants them to play more games, and that's a hard sport. We've been talking about it. That's hard. That's hard on your body. You got a shelf life that's not that long. And like we talked about Calvin Johnson's crooked finger last week, like that sport is very hard on you. And for the league to be like, we are making a money grab and we want you guys to play more games, while at the same time we're doing speeches about health and safety of the players, concussion protocol and blue tents and all that nonsense. It doesn't always jive, and it's players are struggling with it.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a whole lot of DBs that are not really enthused about his negotiations either, but that's another story. We'll talk about that. Matt, you have any comments on the future of DeMarcus and the union?
I was going to, but I'm really mad because Demetrius took everything that I was going to say. I mean, like word for word, he just pulled it right out of my mouth. Like, damn.
Thunder stolen. Robbed you of all of that.
Exactly. I was in the same boat as Don. I gave my time up to him. He used it well.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we start out with you on this one, Matt?
All right.
Does race remain a factor when you're evaluating quarterbacks?
When you evaluate quarterbacks,
yes.
Oh, that's such a hard and sensitive subject, when it comes to that, because I can't speak for scouts and for coaches, when they go and they look at these quarterbacks and stuff like that. Because I feel like so many great African American quarterbacks have come in and changed the way the game is played, the way it's looked at. I mean, Michael Vick came in and just blew up everything as a mobile quarterback. And then everyone wanted to find the next Michael Vick, and then Cam Newton came along and kind of picked up from that. And I know people like Cam Newton have spoken up and said that African American quarterbacks aren't treated the same. When that, I can't remember what year it was, but the year he was, getting hit, so much. And he said, Tom Brady, would have gotten a flag for that, but I didn't get a flag for that, and, and that might be a whole different subject on maybe how refs look at it, or as opposed to how coaches and scouts look at it. But, my personal opinion, if you're able to sling the ball around and you can make the team a better team, I don't think it really matters, or at least it shouldn't. And Like I said, I don't know, because it's hard to say, because teams don't, straight up just come out and say like, oh, well, we'd rather have, a white quarterback as opposed to, like a African, unless Bill thinks differently. I mean, maybe some teams have
not
said
anymore.
that.
They can't just say that anymore. No, you're right.
No.
They stopped being able to just say that. Yeah.
Well, now, Demetrius, I mean, Don, Don already kind of put me on Front Street here because I'm the only one that's older than him on this panel. But anyway, I remember a guy that won the Super Bowl named Jefferson Street Joe, and he played for the Washington Redskins. I think that there was a whole different system that he was evaluated under, because as a matter of fact, I don't think he was even the starting quarterback that season. But anyway,
yeah, Jay Schrader was the starter that year, and Doug Williams relieved him after 6 weeks.
Right. So I think there's a great difference between the way he was evaluated and the way we evaluate somebody like a Lamar Jackson or even a Dak Prescott. What do you think?
I think, and I don't know if this is popular or not, I don't even think that still exists, but now it's just about winning. So if you come along now and you can help me win football games, and truthfully, you can help me keep my job, right? I will find a way. Like, I will find a way to get it done, because you will question the part that bothers me. So I think it's not a yes or no question. It's a to what degree. It certainly still exists. So that's my answer to that. But I think it's subtle things, right? The subtleness is what bothers me. You describe a really good black quarterback. You talk about his talent, his athleticism, things like that. Talk about a really good white quarterback. You call him smart. You talk about him going through his progressions, reading defenses. It's very subtle, but it still exists. But at the end of the day, very few teams in this league, and I know we're going to talk about Russell Wilson later, very few teams in this league, if you can get a guy that will help you win games, I don't think his race is going to stop you. So, which is where racism truly is. So I think does it impact the evaluation, how they view? Sure. But if a guy's good enough to help you win games, you get over it real fast. Real fast. So that's today in 2021. I think that's what it is.
Don, what do you think? I mean, you look at Texas. I remember when Alabama, Bear Bryant said he'd never have a black quarterback, a black player, let alone a black quarterback. You look at LSU back in the old days. I mean, hey, you could even come out here in the West Coast. I mean, USC. Hey, great running backs, but we weren't quarterbacks. What do you think, Don?
Willie Wood was a quarterback at USC before he became a DB in the pros. They've had black quarterbacks at USC going back to the late 1950s.
So you talk about evaluation, and I think what's different between it's a generational thing. Yeah. James, when you and I were there back in the days, quarterbacks, black, white, whatever, they didn't have camps. They didn't have social media. You didn't have all these 7-on-7. You didn't have the opportunity to showcase your talents. Right. And I think that's where that comes to, well, there's this black kid from Prairie View A&M. He's good. Of course, he's black, but he's good. Let's give him a chance. You had that mentality. Nowadays, it's like, who cares? Bring him on. Let's win. Let's win games. Perfect example, there's a quarterback that Texas just got a commitment from California. His name is Malik Murray. He's the number 2 quarterback in the nation. He has not even started a varsity game yet. Wow. Because they had COVID out in California. Well, he's rated number 2 quarterback. He goes to 7-on-7 tournaments. This past weekend out in Arizona, he led his team to 7 straight scoring drives, can make every throw. So that you're talking about evaluation. I think it's nowadays they don't care what color you are. It's what can you do with these little 7-on-7 camps, and I think that's a big part of it. And going back to the old days, think about Warren Moon. Warren Moon, he'd be called, well, he's the athletic. Yeah, he's the athletic, but he's no more athletic than Dan Fouts was. They had similar statistics. if you look at Baker Mayfield and Justin Fields, very similar skill set. They're both athletic. One's white, one's black. Both have a competitive spirit. So I think some of that, what we call, I guess back in the old days, the stereotype. Vince Young, Michael Vick, they're athletic. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, they're like he was saying, they're smart to get their progressions. But if you watch Justin Fields play, he's checking down. He's finding the safety and looking at the corner. So that, and it kind of goes in different positions too, like wide receivers. Every wide receiver, well, he's like Wes Welker. No, he's not. My nephew when he was playing Oklahoma State, they said, well, Austin Hayes is like Wes Welker. Bullshit. Wes Welker is 5'8", a little jitterbug. My nephew's 6'3". He's more Michael Irvin than he is.
It just means he's white. Don, it just means he's white.
Yeah, it's white.
That's all it meant.
For a long time, you had two kinds of white receivers. They were either Jordy Nelsons or they were Wes Welkers. Those are your choices.
Yeah.
Or back in my days, it was Steve Largent.
There we go.
Exactly.
Or Roger Carr, if you could.
Good route runners. Good route runners.
Yeah. Lance Allworth comes to mind.
Yeah.
But he had speed though for that time. That
9-4. He could run a 9-4 100-yard dash.
He could fly.
Brandon Stokely.
There you go.
It just turned into name the white receiver, Danny Amendola.
For the win.
Chris Collingsworth.
Oh, there you go.
Go ahead, Bill.
So I have to defend Willie Wood's, right? Willie Wood was the first black quarterback in 1957. And of course was a terrific quarterback, but got moved to safety. This is going to be a for a while when he got to the NFL. I mean, people forget Kenny Riley was a legend in high school, a legend at FAM playing for Jake the Snake Gaither. Had never played corner a day in his life. Not in Little League, not high school. He had never played corner a day in his life. Do people know this? Kenny Riley had never lined up at corner in his life till he gets to the Bengals camp. He played quarterback his whole life pretty much. He shows up like, well, you're a black guy. Get over there and run. Right. Luckily, he ended up being great. He's number 2 in the history of the NFL in interceptions and not in the Hall of Fame. How? But
that's because he's athletic.
Right.
But I mean, here's a team that really didn't have anything going on at quarterback. I mean, Virgil Carter had taken over for Greg Cook. Greg Cook was going to be an all-time great, and then tore up his rotator cuff. And back in those days, they would just fix it by cutting your arm off. Basically, I watched Raphael Cherry. Now, once again, old guy time. Tear it up at Hawaii. Great quarterback. Shows up, Washington drafts him. Shows up, it's like, go play safety. So things have gotten better, right? Things have improved. But whenever somebody has a quarterback has a bad or an iffy Wonderlic score and it gets leaked out, what color is that quarterback 100% of the time? I'm just saying. When's the last time you heard of a white quarterback? And white quarterbacks do bomb the Wonderlic too, in case you're wondering, kids. but it never leaks out. Anybody notice that?
Yeah.
Right? So, no, it's not completely gone. There's still stuff. But as Demetrius, I keep agreeing with you. But as you pointed out, it's gotten to the point where it isn't blatant. It's not in your face. Nobody's George Preston Marshall's been dead since 1969. So things have gotten better. But is it gone? No. We're still in America. But yes, things have improved. We've gotten to the point where if you are really, really good, and here's what I love. Remember when Deshaun Watson started like doing full-on chalk talks in press conferences? Exactly. Talk about safety rotation and working from he was just so that you understood
on purpose.
Think the game.
Yep.
I'm going to show you I can think this game. Yeah, they showed cover 3 at first, but then they inverted, and he would just lay the whole thing out for you. Because otherwise, they will try to pretend that you're this great natural athlete. there's still an extra burden on black quarterbacks. The answer is yes. There's still an extra burden on black quarterbacks, but that burden no longer is this enormous soul-crushing thing it used to be. And at least you're getting a chance to play quarterback, which you didn't used to.
And you're getting paid. So we'll talk about that a little later on too. Bill, I'm going to stick with you, and 3 firsts for Russell Wilson. Have things really gotten that bad between him and the Seahawks?
Yes and no. I guess everybody's saying yes and no. So everyone knows about this thing called negotiation, right? Where when you want something and somebody doesn't want to give you the something that you want, you start doing things to get them to give you the thing that you right? Okay, just making sure. Yep. Okay, so we're all familiar with the concept of negotiation. So Russell Wilson's not 100% happy right now with the situation in Seattle. He's not 100% thrilled with his offensive coordinator. He's not 100% happy with his deal. He loves Seattle. He's beloved in Seattle. He's not desperate to leave, but he's not 100% happy. So what do you do when you're not 100% happy? Hey, if it's in your marriage, you drop little hints. If it's, your job, you start, making sure your boss knows about your productivity and what other people are making, little things you do. If you're an NFL quarterback and it's a quote unquote quarterback driven league, everybody's desperate for a top tier quarterback, and you are a top tier quarterback.
That's it.
You have the only thing that you really have to use as a player in the league. It's something called leverage, my friend.
Exactly.
So you start pushing little needles, or in Spanish they call it bujita. A little bit, a little of that, right? So that eventually the person notices, maybe we should do a little something for Russ. Maybe we should tear up Russ's deal. Maybe we should, renegotiate some things. Maybe we should talk to him more about how the offense should look. Maybe. Yeah. You just saw everything went right in Houston for a bunch of reasons, mostly Jack Easterby, but some other stuff. And eventually guy just redid his deal. So money's not an issue in this case, but we have a quarterback who just redid his deal, one of the top paid quarterbacks in the league, still unhappy. When you are talking about top tier quarterbacks, it's not just employee, employer. You guys have now become partners, and you better figure out a way to figure out what kind of partnership you're going to have. Otherwise, your team's not going to win Super Bowls. Figure it out, kids.
Don, what do you think? Was Seattle a better team when Russell was just a game manager?
Well, I'm kind of like what Bill's saying. Russell Wilson, he's pretty much done it all at Seattle. Everything that's been asked of him to do, and then some. He probably needs a little bit more support, on the field. I don't think getting rid of him for 3 draft picks is the way to go. To me, if I'm the owner of the Seahawks, general manager, my loyalty right now is to Russell Wilson, as long as he's healthy. Because you start bringing in more people, different faces, you're rolling the dice there a little bit. So he's a proven winner. He and Pete Carroll get along, I believe, and so. I just think that I think they should, like Bill said, it's a partnership. You talk to your partner, you come to consensus, get what you need, but you keep Russell Wilson at all costs. That's just my opinion.
Demetrius, when my quarterback starts talking about going to the Bears, I think he has to be pretty unhappy. What's your thoughts?
So obviously this is very personal to me because my quarterback walked in 2 days after the season ended and said, started doing a bill using different languages, leverage and all this stuff. And the difference was we know who we are. Wrong finger. We know who we are. And they said, okay, Matt, we get it. And they were smart and they executed it. So I totally agree with Bill. This is an exercise in leverage. This is Russ reminding the Seahawks that go listen to Bill because we're partners, right? And so now it becomes up to Seattle. They have 3 options. Do what the Lions did. You're right. We're at a different place. We're going to get the best we can get for you, which might be it. This could be a message to the New York Jets. You got 2 1s this year and a 1 next year. Send all them things this way and we can do it. But then you're saying we're rebuilding. I don't know that's where they are. And what I meant by we know where we are is we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild. And so it was right for us. Stafford exercises leverage. The relationship was super healthy. They agreed and said, look, we got to do the right thing for you. I don't think it's going to go that way in Seattle because I think the right gentleman from Texas and the right gentleman from wherever Bill is, and I don't know, are both correct. This is Russell reminding them. And at the end of the day, though, they can't do this. I think what Russ is saying is, go get me some offensive linemen. I'm tired of running for my life. That's what he's really saying. And if they do that, they can still be competitive right now, unlike my team. So I think it was Russ exercising his leverage, and I think Don's right. They'd be crazy. I mean, and the Jets might do it, by the way. The Jets might do it. So watch what you ask for.
Matt?
I'm a little biased being a Rams fan, so I am going to point out though, taking my fan hat off and putting my other hat on for doing my podcast and say, in my opinion, he's in one of the toughest divisions that's upcoming. I mean, you've had the Rams go to the Super Bowl, then the 49ers the year after. The Cardinals made moves to get better, and again, a little biased, but if you're running from number 99 on the Rams, you're tired of getting tackled by that dude.
Yep.
And, so that's understandable. And Russell Wilson has already come out and said, I want a better offensive line. And Pete Carroll said, I've come to Russ. I said, hey, this is the plan. You just have to trust us and it'll work out. And Russ still after that got on the radio show and said, no, I don't like their plan and I don't like how it's going. So I feel a little, if I had a crystal ball, I would say, yeah, the Seahawks have the face of their franchise. He just won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He has a Super Bowl title under his belt. Did that great defense help out a lot with that Super Bowl? Yeah, probably. But he still has that under his belt. He has the personality of outside of playing football. He has the personality of playing on the field. He's a nice guy to everyone and he's a competitor and everything. Like I said, the face of the franchise.
And his wife. You got to mention his wife. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Do not leave that out. I'm just saying.
He's definitely got that going for him. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like you said, if you're someone who has all those accolades, you have more pull and you have more say than you have someone else that doesn't have that under their belts. They kind of don't have a say if they're going to be traded or have a say in how the team is even run. He's trying to say, I want to have some control and say on the future of the team. And, maybe even with me being the young buck here, I'm assuming I'm not going to try to throw out any ages on anyone, but
I feel fairly certain you are. Yeah.
Yeah. But with me being the young buck here, I still feel old fashioned at heart that I feel players don't try to stick with teams anymore nowadays. They just whine and complain if they're not winning or not getting their way, and they whine and complain until they get traded. You saw it in the NBA, that started with Anthony Davis, and then he went to a team and won a title, and Deshaun Watson's trying to do the same thing. It seems like Russell Wilson's trying to do the same thing. But if I was the Seahawks and I was smart and you want to keep people buying tickets and coming to games when we're able to start doing that again, but if you want people to do that, you need Russell Wilson on your team. So I can't see them trying to rebuild when they're in such a tough division. They need to keep the best players that they have. So.
Totally agree. That, by the way, is without a doubt going to be the toughest division. I mean, all 4 of those teams have shot. My feeling, bias-wise, you guys are headed to a Super Bowl, Matt. Congratulations. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're going to the Super Bowl. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Got my Stafford plug in. Go ahead.
Matt, I'm going to stay with you because I think we have somewhat of the opposite situation. And we're also talking about a division that, I can't say it's stacked, but it's at least competitive to a certain extent. And I'm talking about the Minnesota Vikings? Should they trade Kirk Cousins?
Oh man. In my opinion, Minnesota had such high hopes. They were like, man, we brought in Case Keenum, brought in Case Keenum, 1 game away from the Super Bowl. All we need is a quarterback. That's all we need. We got it. Like we're set. And then they put all their eggs in one basket and with Kirk Cousins, and the experiment didn't work out. It just didn't. If you don't make it to a Super Bowl, then it didn't work. So to Demetrius's comments about us getting Stafford and we're Super Bowl bound. If we don't make it to the Super Bowl, then the experiment didn't work and the trade didn't work out. So same thing with this. It did not work out with Kirk Cousins, and I'm kind of a guy who sees both sides of the ball. I see the offense and the defense, because the defense has to help out just as much. You can score as many points as you want, as the Dallas Cowboys proved, but then if your defense lets you score double that amount, then it doesn't really, matter. So does the Minnesota Vikings have a stellar defense to help out Kirk Cousins? No. But the QB carousel this offseason is going to be nuts, so they have just as great a shot as anybody else to try to bring somebody else in, or even, go in the draft, just because the draft has so many young college quarterbacks that are coming in that people think can change their teams. So I don't know if they can get anything for him. Like, I don't know if a team is really going to want him unless they're desperate, maybe the Chicago Bears, they can they can go in and try to get him because they're desperate enough. But in my personal opinion, I think they need to move on. They need to bring in some new fresh blood from somewhere. But it didn't work out.
Demetrius.
Yeah, so there's so much there that I'm just going to hit it from 3 quick layers. One, so much movement at the quarterback position is going to happen, but it's going to be in phases. There's going to be things that happen before the league year, and you're getting the big dominoes. Stafford, Goff, Wentz, probably Deshaun. Those are big ones. Dallas is going to have to make a decision on Dak. I don't know what they're going to do there. But then you're going to have this next level. Where does Sam Darnold end up? Where does Tua end up? And there's guys like that. I think the answer to your question is they absolutely should move on. The problem is, at age 34 and 35, his cap hits are $31 million and $45 million. So if you have the meeting, if we were talking last week, Bill, there's a meeting. It's going to happen somewhere. And in that meeting, someone's going to say, yeah, we're going to pay 34-year-old Kirk Cousins $45 million to be our quarterback.
You like that? You like that?
I can tell you how that meeting would go if I'm in the room. Right? And Matt just did it. I'm gonna say I don't like that. I don't like that. That's your topic. If you're Minnesota, how do you get somebody on the phone and convince them to take 34 and 35-year-old Kirk Cousins and pay him $76 million over the next 2 years?
All the money.
All the money. It cripples your cap. You're gonna, what you can do at other positions. It's just you just got to eat this one. You got to eat this one, Minnesota. Sorry, because your dead cap money, you can't even release them. Dead cap is $38 million. If you let them go, you can't do it. And you did this. Matt said they put all their eggs in one basket. They put 84 million guaranteed eggs in a basket and handed it to Kirk Cousins. And then Mike Zimmer's defense didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and this is where you are. So Minnesota, you gotta deal with this for 2 more years. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. There's too many other options. I can go get Sam Darnold. I can go get Mariota. You can go get too many other guys. You're not paying 34-year-old Kirk Cousins $45 million. No. I'm sorry. No.
Don, have you changed your mind on trading Kirk Cousins?
Well, I had it all planned out until Demetrius brought up the salary. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking on paper, I get rid of him, and but yeah. So that is problematic when you're had that kind of contract. All that aside, though, you ask yourself, are there better quarterbacks available than Kirk Cousins? The answer is yes, there is. So, to me, Kirk Cousins, he's not bad, but if you're looking to get to the Super Bowl, to me, he's on that same level of maybe Phillip Rivers. I mean, he can put some good stats, have some good games, but you're not going to go very far. So I think probably the best option now is to, I guess you have to keep him and see what you can get in the draft or free agency. This is a pretty good year for quarterbacks being drafted. Just have to ask yourself, is there going to be one available for Minnesota to take? When their time comes up. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know what's going on in New Orleans. I mean, I don't know if they would take a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. I don't know, but it looks like the meat's right. You have to keep him. You have to swallow that bitter pill salary and try to maybe bring someone in and groom him and hope for the best.
Yeah,
Bill,
maybe that cap hit next year when it's only like 18 million, but not now. You got to eat it this year. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bill, it seems to me the only way that New Orleans is going to get a quarterback is if they pay him in oysters. But that's another story altogether. What's your thought on Kirk Cousins?
Well, and people are talking about quarterbacks that are available. Jameis is a free agent.
There you go. Yeah.
But getting back to paraphrase the great Ricky Waters, for who? For what? I mean, like, it's fun to talk about moving him, but it's virtually impossible.
Yep.
Like, how are you gonna do it? What are you gonna do? You would have to literally trick a team, like intimidation, like some sort of magic trick, where they somehow nothing up my sleeve, like boom, you got Kirk Cousins. Like, how are you gonna move him? Like, it's kind of fun to talk about, but it's impossible. Who has that? First of all, who has that kind of cap room? The teams that have that kind of cap room already took care of this. They figured something else out.
Yep.
The Colts are no longer in business. That would have been your best shot. If you could somehow convince the Colts, I don't know how you would have, but if you could somehow convince, this is just the one thing you're missing, is this slightly above average quarterback. You just get this guy.
You're right there.
You're golden. But once the Colts moved off the playing board, like once they removed their piece, that's it. That's all. Why are we talking about this?
Right. It's like, I want you to pay him $76 million for the next 2 years, and I want you to give me draft capital to take that $76 million contract. It's like the Lions only have to pay Goff 43, which I think is fantastic. 2 years of 43, fine.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins is going to make 70. Kirk Cousins is the most brilliant player in NFL history. I'm sorry. I just realized this, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hijack it.
Wait.
Look up his numbers.
Bradford has just entered the group chat.
Look at what the money Kirk Cousins has made in about a 6-year window. Those 2 or 3 franchise tags, the $84 million guaranteed he got from the Vikings. This dude is brilliant, and he went to Michigan State, so I'm not that surprised. But that's fine.
Look at the peak 6 earning years of Sam Bradford, man. That's elite level fleecing right there. Elite level fleecing.
He needs to be thanking the Washington football team, basically, for tagging him over and over again. And then, like, oh, you made me look really good. So some other team came up and paid me the thing I wanted.
He is, and it worked. It was just like brilliant. Whoever his agent is, I need that dude's number. I need him to promote my podcast. That dude knows what he's doing. That dude's good at his job.
Yeah. And Dak Prescott watched it and said, "Oh, that's how you do it.
That's what you do." Yeah, I'll sign that tender.
Good union representative.
We're going to be talking about Dak in a little bit too, and talking about a rock and a hard place. That means I have to talk about my Steelers.
We knew his Steeler topic was coming. We all knew that.
But in the meantime, Bill, Alex Smith says that his comeback actually threw a wrench in the Washington football team's quarterback plans. Do you agree?
What
I'm not
plans?
sure exactly what those plans would have been. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Their plan
what
was
your-
to injure all their quarterbacks until they got to their guy that was barely limping on one leg, and they were
Right.
like, "Put him in."
Monkey wrench? Are you kidding me?
like, what was the plan exactly? That's what I want to know. Like, if this Alex Smith, first of all, props to Alex Smith just for being able to
Big props, yeah.
big props. I mean, I've seen some gruesome injuries, unfortunately, in my time watching football. He's in the top 5 easily of the worst, hardest things I've had to watch watching football. And a lot of people, just like we were talking about, is it over for Tiger? A lot of people said it's over for Alex Smith. And not golf, football, right? I mean, some people don't know if Alex Smith will be able to play golf or play with his kids or any of that stuff. He almost lost his leg. He almost lost his life, right? At one point due to infections that had set in. So amazing that that's even happening, that football's even in the discussion. It is so clear to me that Washington didn't have a plan, or if they had a plan, it wasn't the plan that would have worked.
Right.
So luckily for them, Alex Smith, had this miracle year, because other than that, they were going to be tossing, I mean, Dwayne Haskins is a very immature but talented young man who didn't play college long enough, right? I've talked about the under-16 starts club. It's not a pretty list, kids.
Right.
Tommy Maddox, you like that? Right? I mean, there's a list of dudes on the under-16 starts club, and it's not great. So they didn't have if they had a plan, I don't like the plan. So Alex Smith bailed them out, in essence. I mean, as far as I can tell, unless the plan was to be awful and get like an earlier pick. I mean, that makes sense. Plan? That's the plan they meant? Just to be terrible to go like 3-13? Unless that was the plan they're talking about. He went out there and just, gave them enough. Their offense was never great. I mean, no matter who was playing quarterback, their offense was always, just a little bit. And then my boy, ODU's own, Mr. Heineke, had a few moments out there spicing things up. But at no point did they have an offense that scared you, right? I mean, if you're not, when you're preparing for a Washington football team as a defensive coordinator, I'm not saying you're like phoning it in, but you're not grinding like you're about to face Pat Mahomes. I mean, it's okay. We know what things we got to take away. We're going to roll our safeties towards McLaurin. We'll pack the box, and that's probably about it. I think that's about our plan. So I don't know if it wasn't for Alex Smith. Like I said, we're talking about a team that would be in the fight for one of the top 4 picks.
Don, your thoughts?
Hey, first, let me just say I'm a big Alex Smith fan. Just not necessarily as a player, but just the way he conducts himself and the way he, made this comeback from that injury. The thing about Washington, and they're in the NFC East, which is horrid, has been for a couple of years now. He's like the bright spot on the team. I mean, in this, he's like the little match girl in the snow with the window. Little Hans Christian Andersen.
Oh yes,
reference there, but yeah. So, did he throw monkey wrench? Well, maybe you can say, but I mean, he's Alex Smith. I mean, he's doing what he needs to do, what he wants to do. He's doing it despite, the naysayers, and he's proven a lot of people wrong. So I would love to see Alex Smith stay, and maybe Washington get him some support. But he is, probably in the twilight of his career.
Yep.
And I'd like to see him go out on a good note.
Dimitri, I kind of like it more to the little engine it could, but what's your thoughts?
So all due respect to the fine folks of Norfolk, Virginia, the plan wasn't Taylor Heineke. The plan damn sure wasn't Dwayne Haskins. I go back to Bill started all this off, and I'm still there. What the hell was the plan? They might be saying it in a positive way. Thank you, Alex Smith, for throwing a wrench into our horrible plan. Maybe that's what they're saying. We did not have a plan. We didn't know what we were doing. Thank God Alex Smith came in and gave us, to the right gentleman from Texas, it was a great story. And if they were an organization that had any brains, you're horrible on the field, I would have embraced it. I'd have put up a statue with a real leg. I mean, I'd have put up a statue for it and embraced the story because that's all you had. You were playing that horrible. That's all you had. I would have embraced Alex Smith. I would have never, ever made him feel like an outcast or a wrench in the, because there was no plan. I wish I had more. You know, we're supposed to bring knowledge and insight here. I don't know what the plan was. I'm sorry. I can't help.
Well, Matt, did you ever hear of a plan? I mean, you
I defer the rest of my time to Matt.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No plans. I didn't hear any whispering around here. The only one who has a plan right now, I feel like, is Alex Smith, to be honest. And kind of like what Bill said earlier, that, you know, when people want to negotiate and they want to, you know, get something that they want, they start doing these things. And so Alex Smith is starting to do it by saying, well, the Washington football team never really wanted me. You know, like Demetrius said, he's basically almost saying they had me here just for publicity, like a feel-good story, you know, just like, you know, watch us because we didn't give up on this person. The NFL does not give up on people. Like, you know, we kept them around, you know. So I think the plan of the Washington football team was probably only publicity. And, you know, once all their quarterbacks went down with injury, they didn't really have a choice but to put them in. And I can tell you what, as a Rams fan, I was actually happy when Alex Smith wore Aaron Donald like a book bag, like on his back, and went down to the ground and safely got up.
Right, his knee
was not injured. I actually was like, good job. Thank you, Alex Smith. Like that proves right there that you can handle it and that you're back. So I agree with Don. I would actually like to see him move on to a team that, you know, he could maybe start, you know, and show what he still has. Because he had a lot of promise when he was with the Chiefs, and then, you know, they couldn't get over that hump, and so they got rid of him. So yeah, I agree with Don. I'd actually like to see him end on a good note and, like, you know, maybe go to a team that he can help out. But I think the only reason why he brought up that he was the monkey wrench in their plan is because he's trying to stir things up so he can maybe go somewhere else, is what I'm thinking. So
brilliant. If that works, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if this plan works out, because rumor has it that Marcus Mariota may be the starting quarterbacks for the Patriots next year. What's your thoughts on that, Matt?
I mean, I hate the Patriots with a passion.
Great start. Great start. I love it. Nothing to do with the question, but that's a great start.
Anything that comes out of my mouth is going to be biased as hell. So, you know, the Patriots, if you went to that system, would the Patriots be able to do better than they did with Cam Newton? Yeah, I feel like that they could do better than what they did with Cam Newton, because I feel like they threw Cam Newton in there as a backup running back. Like, he ran the ball more than he threw it. You know, Marcus Mariota would at least be able to, like, help him, give him some more dimension, some more depth at quarterback. But again, kind of like what I said about the Rams in their division, the Patriots are in a really tough division now. Like, they have the Bills, they have the Dolphins, like, yeah, the Jets are there, but, like, you know, the Jets are cheerleaders for the other teams that are in that division. So it's one of those things where, you know, can Marcus Mariota come in and help them beat the Bills and win in the division, or beat the Dolphins and win the division? I don't think so. No. But, you know, he's he's a cheap player to be able to get. I mean, I know the Raiders paid him a good amount just to be a backup, but I think the Patriots could get a good deal for him and bring him in. I kind of feel like the Patriots they relied so much on Tom Brady. I think Garoppolo was the highest quarterback they ever drafted after Tom Brady in the draft. So I almost feel like Jimmy G would be more so going back to the Patriots than Marcus Mariota. But who knows? Once the rumor mill starts going around, sometimes it's kind of a done deal when that stuff starts, floating around. Things, usually come true after that.
What's your thoughts there, Dimitri and Marcus Mariota? I mean, to me, it doesn't make. You could bring Patrick Mahomes in as quarterback. Who the hell is he going to throw it to? Himself? I mean, he's got no receivers. He's got no running game. I mean, hey, but does Mariota make sense to you?
I think that I'm going to start by saying I hate the New England Patriots. Right? So let me get that out of the way. Exactly. Let me get that out of the way initially. So I do not think he makes sense. I don't think it's a fit. I think Mariota is still definitely a serviceable quarterback. Is he one of the best 32 in the league? I don't know. I don't know if there's a place for him. Depends on how things move. But I don't think he fits that mold. Now, I think this year might be the exception. I think Belichick's dog may sit in that chair and draft a quarterback this year because there's enough of them, and there's value there. So I think that this is not where they're a quarterback away, and a lot of it depends on do they have regular OTAs and a real camp and all that, because that's gonna at some point there's gonna be a quarterback still left, and they're gonna take him because he's gonna be cheap. He's going to manage this from a cap standpoint. He's not paying he's not used to paying quarterbacks a lot of money because Giselle has been, complimenting Brady's salary for 10 years. He doesn't remember what it's like to pay a quarterback top dollar. So I don't think he's going to do that. So I think he's going to get somebody on the cheap. I think they got Cam on a friendly deal and then didn't use him correctly. But so my answer is no, because I think somebody's going to pay Mariota to be a valuable backup. And valuable backups make pretty good money. He's not going to get Mariota for what he got Cam for last year. Mariota's going to get more than that. So I think he'll end up something else, Fitzpatrick or somebody like that, maybe.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Don, your thoughts on Marcus and the Patriots?
Well, maybe the Patriots will take DeMarcus Cousins. I don't know.
I thought that's what you were going to say. I'm like, is he about to Boogie at quarterback for the Patriots? I like it.
He didn't start it off the right way. He's supposed to start off with. At first, I want to say I hate the New England Patriots. He's supposed to start it.
It's an opening statement.
Yeah, opening statement. But Mariota is, he hasn't had the career that I thought he would have in the NFL, but he's not great. He's not good, but he's not bad either. I mean, he's not terrible. So I think Belichick is in that same position that Abraham Lincoln was in the Civil War, where he was going general after general after general after general to say which one of these guys can beat General Lee, So I think Belichick, he said, well, one Cam, who's up next? Mariota, they got Kirk Cousins. I mean, that's just kind of a pipe dream. But I think there's a mental aspect to I need to do this without Tom Brady, and he can't. Because Tom Brady would take, if we say the Patriots have no receivers, Brady would find receivers. He would make these people around him great, like Wes Welker and Danny Amendola. But
yeah.
But I think if they want to go Mariota to the Patriots, I don't think it's going to be a long-term deal at all. I like maybe if they get Jimmy G back there, maybe he could recreate himself. Maybe Alex Smith would get more appreciation in New England than he is in Washington right now. So it remains to be seen.
Bill, your thoughts on who's going to be quarterbacking for the Patriots next year? I mean, Come on, Tom Brady made James White's career. I mean, you can almost say without Brady, James White and Amendola are both heading for the twilight seasons. What do you think? Who's going to be the quarterback for the Patriots next year?
I want to start by saying, from the very deepest depths of my soul, I have a true volcanic hatred for the Patriots. Now, having established that fact, and I'm not going to hear any more slander about Deion Branch, or I think Troy Brown, who's 46 years old, in Patriots camp will be the best receiver they have. So, I mean, Danny Amendola would run rings around the guys they've got now. So let's not go too far. Brady can elevate someone's game, but you have to be able to play the game to be elevated. I mean, I watched a lot. It was hard, but I watched a lot of Patriots games. Oh, my God. I mean, there were games where Jacoby Myers was their best receiver. Jacoby Myers! So let me just say this to Marcus Mariota, who I once called a poor man's Alex Smith and then later called Mitchell Trubisky poor man's Marcus Mariota. So you have a quarterback who is old. I mean, we talked about, Josh Allen, and we talked about Cam, who are big, powerful, fast athletes. He's not that, but he's one of the faster quarterbacks in the NFL. And part of what made him so good in Chip Kelly's system in Oregon was the threat of him running. And when he got away from that, he exposed things he wasn't great at. Yep. He doesn't have great pocket presence. His arm is just strong enough. Like, he's in that bottom 8 in arm strength among starting NFL quarterbacks. He's in that Case Keenum, Alex Smith, below Alex Smith range. So he's not, he doesn't have a cannon exactly. So when you don't have a terribly strong arm and you aren't great at navigating the pocket, that means you either have to have an elite level running game and or a terrific offensive line, and God willing, on top of that, great wide receivers. And when they had a great running game when he was in Tennessee, and let's not forget, he lost that job, like, flat out, to his would-be backup, who flamed out in Miami, right? So I'm not saying he can't play, but I'm saying he needs everything. Like, he's not a guy who's about to just go out there and carry you, right? He's a guy that, what's the old Daniel Jeremiah quarterback saying about there's semi trucks and there's trailers. He's not the semi truck. So you need a lot, and the Patriots don't have a lot.
Exactly.
Unless the plan is to get him and then super tank, right? So that they can next year, not this draft, but the next draft, maybe have the first pick or something. But this isn't the NBA, right? This doesn't mean what it means in other sports, just to have the first pick. It's somewhat helpful, but look at the sort of the arc of teams that have picked first in the NFL over the past few years. It doesn't usually lead to success.
Exactly.
These teams don't turn it around all of a sudden for the most part and then win the Super Bowl the year or even the year after that. So tanking in the NFL, isn't quite the same as trusting the process in the NBA. So what's the point, I guess? Like, if you did have Marcus Mariota, what would you be accomplishing exactly? Unless you just are a huge Mariota fan. Maybe Nike or Bill Belichick, whoever it is going to make the call regarding this, might be a huge Marcus Mariota fan. Who knows? But I really don't see the point. Like, why wouldn't you just go with an even cheaper option? I mean, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if I'm really just going cheap, why am I not making a call to like Austin Davis or Nick Mullins, or, Like, why don't I just go basically vet minimum quarterback and write it out? Plus, they've got super cap problems. I mean,
that's
in case you're wondering, on top of everything else, they're jacked. So, I like I said, I mean, they could, I guess, but I don't see why.
Now let's go to a subject that I'm having a hard time dealing with, because my thoughts personally are that it's time for Big Ben to go. But then once again, I get like Bill. Well, if not Big Ben, who? You know,
Nick Mullins.
Mason
Kirk
Randolph.
Mason Randolph, right?
We got Dwayne
Yeah.
Haskins. We're just grooming him. He's being groomed.
Haskins is ready.
Right. He's being groomed by whom? But anyway, as I was saying here, the Rooneys have decided that we're going to bring Big Ben back, which I think is a mistake. But we talked about his hit on the cap space also. So I think that the Steelers are really between a rock and a hard place, and they had no chance to get rid of him. Or if he retired, as I said, we still may see him retire in the middle of the season or whatever, if Dwayne Haskins works out or whatever. But what's your thoughts on this situation here, Bill? I know you follow the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. I mean, because
I've watched Mike Tomlin since he was playing at Denby High School. So yeah, I've seen Mike Tomlin since he was a 15-year-old.
Well, and the thing about Mike, and I think I mentioned this a couple of times, is that I think Mike Tomlin's success is hitched to Ben's wagon, and I think this is a really bad. It's really bad this year. But what do you think, Bill? Was this a rock and a hard place for the front office and the salary cap?
So they're going to have one of those Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis Presley kind of negotiations. Now, I know one of us is too young to know where this is going. So I'm
You got to break it down for the kid. Break it down.
We'll break it down. So here's how it was explained when Colonel Tom Parker used to explain negotiations to Elvis Presley. Well, I was going to do everything 50-50. We'll split everything right down the middle, half-half, and then I'm going to get half of your half. So that's what they're gonna have to do with this contract. Right down the middle, and then you'll get back half of your half.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't see how this is gonna work. So if Ben is willing to pay for like a cool 7.75 guaranteed with the chance to make 11, then yeah, we can make this thing happen. But I mean, he's gonna have to give back lot of money. Now he might be willing to do that. He's made a lot of money, so who knows? But unless he's willing to give back something like 70% of the value of what he would have been owed, and we'll see. If he's willing to do that, then yeah, sure, whatever. One more year, what can it hurt? Because
our chances to win.
But we weren't going to win anyway.
Exactly.
I hate to say it, but where are we going? Like, Dwayne Haskins was taking us to the Super Bowl. Mason Rudolph was taking us to the Super Bowl. Come on now. So if you are just trying to kind of make it look good, which I'm assuming this is about, a face-saving exercise, because otherwise you're saying we're going to go into a full rebuild, which this team hasn't done in a minute. Oh, and one other thing so somebody said it's been a lot since how long it's been since the Patriots took a quarterback early. So obviously Jimmy Garoppolo was a second rounder. You got to go back to first rounder spent on the quarterback was Drew Bledsoe. So because obviously they got Edward Patrick Brady Jr. With pick number 199, as will be on his headstone, and so the
autobiography called that.
Yes. Oh yes, and his cologne will be called Pick 199. So which is all natural, made from avocado oil. Exactly. But the fact is, and look, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. If everything goes right, we're talking about 9-7, 10-6, maybe with Ben. If Ben is better than he was last year. Without Ben, we're talking 5-11, 6-10. I mean, we've got cap problems, right? We got people we can't bring back on defense. We got people we can't bring back on offense. We got some of our better offensive linemen are retiring, probably. I mean, I mean, this team just on muscle memory may fight its way to 8-8, right? Just because they don't seem to know how to have losing seasons.
On principle, yeah.
Right, just grit and principle and hard-headedness.
Yeah.
But with Ben or without Ben, this isn't a Super Bowl team. Like, I hate to say it, but it's just a fact. I mean, I'm a fan, but I'm mostly an analyst. I'm an analyst first and a fan second. I can look at that roster, right? And I can see what the Browns have done. And I can see where the Ravens are. Our roster is as good as either one of those rosters, with or without Ben. So unless you somehow have some plan where we make a trade for Aaron Donald. I mean, like, what are you talking about here? You know what I mean? Like, how are we?
It's okay, Matt. It's okay, Matt. It's easy. Hypothetical. He's serious.
I mean, that wasn't that right. I didn't mean that can't happen anyway. Like, that's not a thing that can happen. You're okay. I just meant, like, that's unless some sort of weird act of God kind of thing happens. This is not a team that's prepared to make a deep playoff run. They don't have the players, and they're they're probably the third best team in the division. Thank God for the Bengals.
Yeah. Well, we might be the third best team in the division, but we'll still have the fourth best quarterback in the division. Don, your thoughts?
Well, I totally agree with Bill. The Steelers will be lucky to, I think, win 7-8 games next year, just because.
Blasphemy! All you guys are fired. You know none of you come back. Go ahead, Don.
I tend to deal in reality in that division. I mean, Baltimore, Cleveland. I mean, Cincinnati might even beat Steelers this year. I mean, it depends on how Joe Burrow recovers. But the Steelers, 2-3 years ago, they were contenders. But hey, I mean, Father Time catches up with us, and they're going to have to restart. They're going to have to. Big Ben's not going to be the guy to do it. He's that last game in last year at the end of the season. He was playing scared. I saw it in his body language. It just wasn't the Ben we saw 5-6 years ago at all. He's losing. His center is going to retire. I mean, it's a mess, and I think they should start wheeling and dealing and try to position themselves better in the draft. This is my opinion.
Well, Demetrius, it kind of sounds like some of the other situations that we were talking about, because it gets even worse next year.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
So, go ahead and kick us while we're down. It's okay.
All right. So sometimes this is really interesting. You have this thought of this topic of all this stuff you want to say, and then somebody else says something, and you just say, to hell with everything I was going to say. And as much as Bill and I kind of have this joke of, I hate to agree with you, Bill nailed this in the first minute. The meeting goes like this: Mr. Roethlisberger, if you want to be my quarterback, I'm going to need half of your half. That's it. I believe you said there's going to be a $22+ million cap hit to do this, right?
22 mil.
Bill nailed it. You're not winning a Super Bowl either way. So you just can't do this. I think Colbert was making a point last week. He was subtly saying, Ben, are you familiar with the word restructure? If you've not heard of that word, let me introduce you to the concept of restructuring your deal. I'm going to need half of your half. That's exactly how that meeting goes. And then you get to play quarterback and probably groom your backup. But if you don't address the future and you let this man start, then you're doing something very unsteal. You're doing some lion stuff right there. That's not Steeler stuff. That's some lion stuff. Right, and I don't mind admitting it. That's the kind of stuff we would do. You have to cut his salary in half. Bill was greedy. Bill's like 70%. I want it all. All right.
If you really want to play,
right? But you really should. You could seriously justify a half of your half conversation, right? We got to cut that number down. You can't. You're crippling us right now. And we love you, but you're not that good anymore. It's truth, hard business. And I'm still bitter because my favorite quarterback is gone. So yeah, I'm mad at all quarterbacks. Everybody. You make $43 million and you're Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, I'm mad because now I got Jared Goff. So, but no. As far as Roethlisberger goes, all the things they said are right. And I know it's tough for you to hear, James, but Cleveland's better. Baltimore's better with or without Ben. And you can't justify paying Ben all that money. You can maybe justify paying half. If you can go Bill Carroll on him and get 70%, good for you. But that's right. At the end of the day, that's what it is. I'm going to need half of that half. Sorry.
Oh, man. The clowns are better than us.
The clowns. That's great.
The Ratbirds are better than us. And the Bungles, we might be playing for the bottom with them. Matt, can you brighten my day any?
Good luck, buddy.
I know, man. Like, why did I have to go last, right? Just it's like that meme with The Simpsons with her like, no, stop, he's already dead. Don't rub salt in the wounds, But I like the theme of like having the conversation with Big Ben. My opinion, my conversation would go this way, though. I would sit down with Big Ben and I would say, listen, you've won Super Bowls with us. You're the face of the franchise. We'd rather you retire a Steeler than go somewhere else and play a year like Phillip Rivers and then, not be able to go out the right way. So we can let you, walk away, retire, and, you'll most likely, I would say probably have a Hall of Fame career, and call it good, or we can trade you, or you can walk, or you can get cut. There's been plenty of quarterbacks that have had to have their teams tell them, you're kind of done. You've gotten to that point.
Tom Brady.
Tony Romo wanted to retire.
Tony
Romo wanted to play.
Yeah.
And they kind of said, okay, Dak's here. He's kind of the guy. We want you to retire a Cowboy, end your career with us and move on. And Tony Romo did it. I know the problem, like you said, of, who's the next man up or who's going to be there. But you either have to look to the draft or, look to free agency, like a Marcus Mariota or something like that.
Sorry, man. Go ahead.
It's not, like I said, it's kind of, putting a Band-Aid on a leak, but it's one of those things where a lot of people, I would say, especially Steelers fans, feel like, they had a top tier defense. JJ Watt's talking about wanting to play with his brothers. If you're trying to bring in, someone like that to bolster the defense, you may be one quarterback away from still competing. But like you said, it's a rock and a hard place trying to figure out which quarterback is going to do that. But unfortunately, Big Ben is, with the surgery on his elbow and everything, like he can't make the throws that he used to make anymore. And if you can't throw the ball down the field, you're not going to win in the NFL nowadays. Like you gotta be like a Patrick Mahomes where you can like flick it and it goes almost the whole way. So if you don't have that ability, it hinders trying to win in the league right now.
Not in that division, yeah. But the problem is they got 22.8 million reasons that threat to cut him rings hollow. They can't sit him down and say, we're just going to cut you. Really?
Well, but
which is why restructuring is the way to go.
Exactly.
But playing them, I don't think is. I mean, even if you restructure, like,
that's why James nailed this. This is the dictionary definition of rock in a hard place. That was a great call on this.
Yeah. Let's talk about the number 10 pick. Belongs to the Dallas Cowboys. Matt, I'm going to let you start this one.
Oh man, awesome, man. Well,
I hate the New England Patriots.
Does Dallas keep Dak? Do they draft a quarterback or do they draft Somebody on that
I mean,
defense.
has anybody talked to Jerry Jones to ask him who he's going to pick? Because the coach definitely doesn't have a say.
Right.
Like he's going to pick what I like to call on my podcast the sexy pick. You know, he's going to pick whatever is the flashy, sexy pick, the fancy car. Did they need to pick a wide receiver last year? No. They needed someone on defense, and they freaking picked a wide receiver. Like, it just blows my mind. So would I be surprised at all if they try to pick a quarterback? No, not in the least, because you know, they don't care that their defense was the worst defense that they've ever had in their history of their franchise. And they allowed the most points scored ever in their franchise history. So, you know, Jerry Jones is senile enough to be like, oh, no, it's fine. It's cool. I'm just going to sip my tea and sit back and, you know, just
on the yacht.
On his yacht and just be like, well, things are fine. I'm good. So he's going to pick whatever best player is available that he thinks will bring in money, bring in tickets. He's not going to pick the best player to help the team win, unfortunately. That's just not how he works. So,
Demetrius?
So there's two. The quarterback won't be there at 10. So the quarterbacks will be gone probably by 7 because we're trading out to somebody to draft the last quarterback. So I think that what it strikes me as odd is that there are teams that have quarterbacks and they don't do everything they can to keep them. And until 10 years ago, 11 years ago, we never had a quarterback, right? And so when we got him, I loved him. Why you would look? There's a movie, and I will probably need Bill's help. It was about poker. It might have been 21. It might have been something else. John Malkovich says, "Pay that man his money." That's what this is, right? I think it was 21, and I forgot what it is.
21 is blackjack.
Blackjack.
So
Okay,
so it might have been the Cincinnati Kid, the Rounders.
Might be
Rounders.
I think it's Rounders. Yeah, Rounders.
Yeah.
Pay that man his money. That's what you do at 10 is you take the best defensive player available because Matt might be the youngest one here, but he clearly knows what that he's talking about. Take the best defensive player available. Pay that man his money. Even if you want to
show me the money. Show me the money.
Exactly. Say it louder, Jerry. I can't hear you. Pay Dak his money because you have a quarterback. You don't want that problem. You already have it solved. Don't create that problem. Create a problem at guard. create a problem at punter. Don't create a problem at quarterback when you have one. Pay the man his money, draft the best defensive player, and keep going from there.
Don?
So Jerry Jones needs to take the first 3 picks, needs to be on defense. Linebackers, secondary, you can always use defensive lineman. That's good. If you're going to use a draft pick, like maybe 4th or 5th, get an offensive lineman. You don't need receivers. Your tight ends are good. Your running backs are good. I think Dak will make a comeback. I think Dak is going to be the comeback player of the year. I'm all in on Team Dak Prescott. Great guy, and Andy Dalton is a good backup. But why have these receivers? Because Andy Dalton can't get those receivers on a consistent basis. Yeah, every once in a while, he'll find an open man and connect, but not on a consistent basis. Not like you need to have if you have those type of receivers. You can't be like the Houston Rockets where you're scoring, 40 points a game. Well, they're not even doing that. But I mean. And lose by 3, that type of crap. So, yeah, I think Dak Prescott will be back. I think Jerry Jones, if he's smart, then that's a very big if. Take the first 3 picks, goes defense, and he needs to let his coaches in on the decision-making because, like Matt was saying, he always goes for the sexy pick and makes headlines and, hey, they won't be able to stop me. No, you have to play defense to win in this league.
Bill?
Okay, so I should be charging Dallas, but I'll give them to this for free. Surtain or Caleb Farley, then Quincy Roche, and you follow that up with either Davion Nixon or he's not available, then you follow that up. I mean, or maybe if you can't get either of the corners, then maybe Micah Parsons, follow up with Greg Newsome, and then you go after a guy like, once again, Tracy Roche, or maybe Cam Sample. This team is a sieve on defense. Historically poor. I would like to go back to something that someone pointed out. I believe it was Matt. When this team was a expansion franchise, and this is not under the new expansion rules, this is the old expansion rules. When your team was built from cast-offs from other teams that they left unprotected in the expansion draft, and then, guys in the normal draft. So your team was rookies and dudes that couldn't play anymore. When their team was rookies and dudes that couldn't play anymore, they had a better defense than last year's defense.
Wow.
I need people to really wrap your arms around how they were on defense. As was said, historically. You would see things on film where you would say to yourself, they are playing a prank on their defensive coordinator. That's the only thing they say some of these things. You can't, because, I don't believe in point shaving. So I assume that some of the things that happened had to be guys who were like, man, coach is going to freak when he sees me do this on tape. Because some of the things I saw their defense do, run fits, stuff that literally, if I were coaching ninth graders, I wouldn't expect to see. 3-4 guys clogged in one gap and nobody in the next two. I saw guys take angles. That suggested to me that they must have thought that the other player was going to start running in reverse. The angles they took suggested that at some point the guy was going to come towards them. What are you doing with the angles you're taking? I saw coverage busts galore. I mean, everything I saw on defense was bad. They were bad at every level. Yeah. They were bad against the run. They were bad against the pass. They could, everything you could think of. There was the bright spot where you could say, they got, no. It was a black hole of suck on defense. So, yeah, you can draft a quarterback if that's what you're into, but no.
Right.
No. Just
still
no.
won the division, though,
Right.
Yeah. So did the Steelers. We won the division too. Anyway.
Yeah, I like how Don was identifying the positions. And he said linebacker, corner, and defensive line. You realize at every level. You realize every line.
Because they need everything.
Everything. It's great.
Matt, how old are you?
Today is my birthday. I just turned 35.
Hey.
Love it. Happy birthday.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. So that means you were born in 19. What year were you born?
86.
86. Well, about
the year I graduated from high school.
Class
of 86.
Nice.
Yeah, 86.
One year.
Sherilyn Smith with my public health class. Oh my God. Yes, 86 is a very good year.
Yes.
Yeah. 87 was much better. I turned 40. But anyway, that's another story. Matt, about 9 years before you were born in 1978, Pete Maravich scored 68 points against the Knicks. Today.
Tell him who Pete Maravich is, please.
Oh, well, yeah.
So before the Jazz were in Utah, they were in New Orleans.
Back when the name made sense.
Right. And here's a fun fact. So the year that they moved and the couple years before that, do you know who their GM was?
Me? No.
Well, no, any of you.
No.
Morton Downey Jr.
Get out.
was their GM.
Oh, God.
Don't mess with me in Trivial Pursuit. I will mess you up.
When you're wondering why a team in Utah is called the Jazz, it's because they moved from New Orleans. Whereas Bill said the nickname actually made sense.
Matt, I'm going to start with you again because now. Of course, with the passing of Kobe Bryant, we always seem to have this conversation every couple of years. Is it time to change the logo?
Time to change
To
the
Kobe,
logo.
or just change it in general? I just want to understand the question.
To Kobe.
Oh.
Because you have Kyrie Irving and of course Kobe's widow are once again petitioning the NBA to change the logo to Kobe.
I thought you were changing it to Pistol Pete. I was like, what a
So the logo has its socks.
Right. The two stripes on the sock.
Man, changing the logo. I mean, I guess I'm trying to imagine it. Like, if it was changed to like Kobe, how would you know that it's Kobe? Because it's just a silhouette. So it's just like, like unless someone specifically says, we're changing it to Kobe, then people know, okay, that's Kobe. But like if you look at it, people aren't going to just be like, first glance, like, oh yeah, that's Kobe. I mean, who is it like to begin with? Isn't it just
Jerry West?
Jerry West. Supposed to be Jerry West.
And Jerry West, because you don't know who he is either. No, I'm just kidding.
I do. So yeah, I mean, it'd be hard for me to say that it needs to be changed to Kobe. Other than obviously that would be a great memorial to him. That's a great way to encompass his legacy. I can't remember. Maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong or not. But weren't there talks before about changing it to Michael just because he was so popular?
Yeah, it's been talked about changing it to Michael. It's been talked about changing it to Kobe before. We've had many conversations about changing the logo. And very few people, I guess, unless you're a basketball fan or you really know the history of the logo. Like you say, it's a silhouette, so very few people know that it's Jerry West, unless you're somebody that follows sports. Demetrius, what do you think? What do you think, Demetrius?
While I love and appreciate the intent, right? They're trying to honor him. I'm with that. This isn't the way. That is iconic, right? And Jerry West deserved it when it happened, but it's bigger than Jerry West. It's not even about Jerry West. That's your brand of this league. There's a way to do this, right? I think they could do a number of things. They could have, and they do have, trophies when you win the conference. Because I don't know that you changed the Larry O'Brien. That's very cool. Maybe you have the Western Conference trophy named the Kobe Bryant Trophy. You could name the Staples Center after Kobe if you want. There's ways to do this.
In California.
So that's good. That's good. But if you are the organization wanting to do this, there's a number of ways you can do it. If you're the league and you want to do it, this isn't the way, in my opinion. I would have to think of a lot of ways because the intent is good and there's ways to do it. But there's ways you can help people. Changing a logo makes no sense, but make a scholarship fund or do something that's literally helping other people, because that's, quite frankly, what Kobe would have been about. Create some program for girls basketball, youth girls basketball. Name that program after him. That's the kind of thing he would have probably wanted. And so I get the intent. I'm certainly aligned with the intent. This is the wrong answer, though.
Yeah, well, I'm leery when the name Kyrie comes up. But
exactly. Hey, what's Bill's name? Give it
World B Flat.
World B Flat. I love it. Yeah, I don't trust World B Flat either.
Don, what's your thoughts here?
Well, I think, in the NFL we have the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Maybe something like that for Kobe. But, like Demetrius was saying, that logo is iconic. And a lot of people don't even know who's on there. I mean, Matt didn't. So, and I vaguely remember Jerry West, like maybe back, I think last year was what, 78? No. 70, 71, 72.
72, I think.
Early 70s. So that,
72.
72,
yeah. He's 2 years younger than I am.
So Matt just thinks he's a GM, doesn't even know he used to be a player. Sorry.
But there's a lot of ways to honor Kobe Bryant, and he's do that. I mean, without a doubt. But changing a logo, like I said, it's a silhouette. I mean, you could say, "Well, that's Kobe Bryant." You could keep the logo the same and say, "Hey, that's Kobe Bryant." Or you could say, "That's Tony Parker." I mean, it's a silhouette.
Right. It's a great point, man. This is a silhouette.
Now, when the silhouette, when you tell a silhouette, when you do the Air Jordan Nike, he's fine there. But you'd have to pay a shitload of money to Nike to probably get that on the.
Exactly. The cost of that is huge.
Yeah. What do you think, Bill?
I wish you'd actually. I've been thinking about this for a long time. So I'll talk about the things that I've had in my mind. I've thought for some time they should have a Mamba and Mambacita. So he talked about the scholarship fund, but also a Mambacita internship for young women that want to get involved in basketball coaching and operations. So I would like to see, and then in terms of like a trophy given, the Kobe Bean Bryant trophy would go to a person who's done the most to advance the cause of women's basketball. Yeah. So that's what the award would be for. And there'd be a scholarship fund for young women who want to be involved in basketball or who played basketball, who want to now go on to things like athletic administration, coaching, or front office. And like I said, an internship, the Mambacita internship, would be for young women who have, and it would start when they were young. Like you would bring in 50 or whatever, or what was Kobe's last number? I guess 24 or 8 or whatever. You figure out a number of young women that would come in, and you would have mentorship with them and follow them from 12, 13 years all the way up through college. And then once they were ready, they would get a chance to get a paid internship with an NBA or WNBA franchise. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe we'll let you submit something like that to the NBA, Bill. Make sure you told them. Make sure you tell them that you told us here first. Bill, the Coaches Association was critical of the Timberwolves process in handling the hiring of their new coach. What's your thoughts on that? Did the Coaches Association have a point?
Well, I won't say they don't have a point. They have a point, but why? I mean, how sometimes we said, just like with, hey, do you want Marcus Major to go back? Sure, maybe, I guess. It's sort of like that. Like, yeah, okay, but this isn't the hill to die on,
right?
I mean, I hate to put it that way, but really, like, my action is, you could complain about this. You could, right? I could see why you might decide to do so, but for what? To get you where? To accomplish what? It feels like a nothing burger. I'll be honest.
Yep.
What do you think, Don? You agree with Bill?
What was that?
Do you agree with Bill that this is an argument much about nothing? I mean, there's nothing. What's the
there's
point?
No there there.
We're talking. Go ahead, Don.
Go ahead.
No, I said go ahead.
I can't hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh no.
I'll jump in. I'll jump in. Seniority over young. I'm sorry, I keep making young jokes. I'm just kidding, Matt. I think I'm actually going to take it a step further than Bill because the question you asked was, do they have a point? No. I'm sorry. Here's the thing, and I don't even care if it's unpopular. The Minnesota Timberwolves are a business, and they have a right to make business decisions. So if it's one of us, and like I will just make it very personal to me, right? If I had a football team and I need a quarterback, and Matt Stafford's available, I don't need to talk to a bunch of other dudes because I love Matt Stafford. I know Matt Stafford is what I want. I've had my business meeting. He fits my strategy. I know what I want. I'm going to go get the guy I want. And I'm not going to placate you by talking because I'm not doing them any service. And the whole thing with like the Rooney Rule and this whole concept, nobody's asking for handouts. quiet as it's kept, black coaches don't want handouts. They want opportunities to interview. They want those types of opportunities. But you ask any black coach in this league, hey, the Timberwolves had already found a guy they liked and wanted. It was a business decision on their part. Would you have wanted them to bring you in for an interview that would have been tantamount to nothing but a waste of everybody's time because they were going to hire that dude anyway? So to Bill's, my shoulders just want to do this, right? What's the point? They knew who they wanted, and they have a right to do that. Now, they can answer the questions. If they're honest, they just stand up and go, we think that guy's next level. We think he fits our strategy. We wanted him. We decided not to disrespect the concept and all these coaches by bringing in people we knew we weren't going to hire. That it's my shoulders. It's just, come on. There's no.
John, do you agree with that? I mean, it was a business decision, and basically, hey, this is what we want to do with our business. What do you think, Don?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry about that. My battery died. I had to plug my computer back in. Yeah, so whenever you're talking about the hiring process, like Bill was saying, I mean, you have all these supposedly, guarantees that everyone's going to equal opportunity, but everything's a good old boy network. Not necessarily based on race. It's just the way it's been is that people know people. And remember back when I was an assistant back in, 1984, and we did this, and we went to the strip clubs together. And yeah, I mean, and it's like that at all levels of coaching. I mean, I coached for close to 20 years. I got 2 jobs pretty much just because of who I knew. One, because I was qualified. I was qualified, but that's not what they looked at. They said, oh, yeah, I remember when he played at East Central, or I knew I coached with his dad. So, because my dad was a coach. So there's a lot of that goes on. And it's high school, college, pro.
It's life, yeah.
That is how coaching trees are formed.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Branches out, and so unfortunately, minorities are kind of late on getting there, but it's changing. We've got in NBA and NFL that's slowly changing. Hopefully, it continues.
Matt, your thoughts on the Timberwolves hiring?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, it's a business, and people are trying to run the business the way that they want. And I agree with what Demetrius said with saying, why waste all these other people's time, that you're not going to end up hiring if they can maybe go and interview other places where they're not wasting their time, and they can have a chance at those jobs. And, I agree with Don was saying about like the coaching tree. I mean, everything is like a copycat league, especially in, the NFL. I know we're talking about the NBA right now, but even in the NFL, when Sean McVay came onto the scene, everyone wanted to find the next Sean McVay. And so everyone started taking all the people that he spoke with. Oh, Sean McVay had coffee with this guy at Starbucks. Let's hire him as a coach. I mean, it's one of those things. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just how, the people are wanting to, run their business, because it's their team and they own it. So,
Bill, give us your final thoughts for the evening, my man. Always good having you on. Always provide us with a whole lot of knowledge. And of course, I know you're getting ready to do your drafts and whatnot. I saw you get in touch with Dimitri. I know you guys are making a hook up there. So, Bill, give us your final thoughts for the evening.
Sure. And I really have been thinking a lot about some of the pioneers, right? People who went the hard way, the tough way, the way untraveled, not just less traveled, but not yet traveled. And I've been writing a lot about George Taliaferro. And for those who aren't familiar with him, he was the first player. He didn't sign, but he was the first player drafted in the quote-unquote modern NFL. And he had been an All-American at Indiana. And he played on a team that at one point had 8 black players, which in those days was a lot, including Mel Grooms, who was the guy that broke the color line with the Lions.
Yep.
And Mel Grooms. But Grooms beat Man by, I think, a matter of days in terms of signing. But they were both signed by Bo McMillan, who had left Indiana to take the job with Detroit. And Bo McMillan was a sort of unusual guy to be such a part of racial progress in football, because he's this guy from a tiny town in Texas, Don, of all places, Lime something. I used to know where it was, but Lime something, Texas. There can't be that many places with lime in the name.
Limestone County.
Thank you, Limestone. And he himself was a All-American player at Center College, got into coaching right away after his playing career, and had been at these, small all-white schools, and then finds his way eventually to his first sort of big job at Indiana. And Indiana at that time was in the Big Nine, became the Big Ten when Michigan State came back in the conference. And they'd had, black players going back to the 1880s. Their first black player was a very well-known family, the Eagleson family, which has done lots of stuff. They had members of their family who were Tuskegee Airmen, and the first black woman to graduate from Indiana, and a bunch of other stuff. But the point is that when he got there, they had a handful of black players, but they didn't have very prominent roles. And that changed. Bo McMillan, for all of his Southern roots, wanted his best players to play, and to play pivotal roles. So George Taliaferro, who was an exception to the normal rules against freshman eligibility because of World War II, was able to play in the 1945 season as a freshman and tore it up right away. Was a real triple threat. He could punt, he could return kicks, he could throw the ball, he could run with the ball. He was a terrific linebacker, killer, absolute killer. And Mel Grooms was a blazing fast track and football athlete. So, in fact, the high jump record that Mel Grooms set his freshman year was the Indiana record until 1959, so it stood for 15 years. But that team that they came on to went 9-0-1 and won an outright conference title, which, no offense to Indiana football, is the only one they have in the history of their program. They shared one in 67, but the only one they won by themselves was 1945, and in part because of that infusion of black talent that weren't just on the team, but were prominent players on the team. And there was a fullback on that team. He was a reserve player. The starting fullback was Ted Kluszewski, who most for baseball. But his backup was a guy named William Q. Buckner. Now, that name may ring a bell for those who follow Indiana sports, because he had 2 sons, one named Lauren, another named William Q. Buckner, but he didn't go by William. He went by his middle name, Quinn, and played football and basketball at Indiana. And then Lauren just played football. But it was tough. One of their games was that freshman year was in Tulsa. And suffice it to say, Tulsa's fans and Tulsa's players were not thrilled to see black players, and made it very clear they were not exactly excited to see players. Racial invectives were heard. Very rough play took place. Lots of Tulsa players, in fact, were ejected from that game for the extra abuse. And this is when you could really hit people. Like, this is 1945, people. If you got ejected from a game in 1945, you probably stabbed someone. So these players playing a very tough game and playing it in places where it was made to know that we don't want you here and we were going to try to take you out, managed to push through all of that, and they finished 4th in the country. Once again, still the highest that at the end of the season Indiana's ever finished as a football program. So I think of George Taliaferro and others who fought through. I mean, we talk about how things are better, but it wasn't better for them, right? It wasn't better for them. It sucked. They were in isolation. They couldn't live on campus. They couldn't travel with their teammates sometimes. They couldn't stay in the hotels with their teammates. They would have to find, they would go to sometimes the local church and say, "Hi, I'm here to play a game tomorrow. Do you know somebody who can put me up?" I mean, think about that. J.J. Watt didn't have to put up with that, right? Aaron Donald didn't have to put up with that. Like, the guys playing now have no idea what these guys who played in the teens and the 20s and 30s and the 40s, and even before that in some cases. I mean, the first, goes back to, the 1860s, but, football was very small in those days. But football was a big deal. College football was a big deal, and these guys are still having to knock on doors in the black community to find a place to stay. So George Taliaferro and many others are who I'm thinking of in my final thoughts.
Thank you so much, Bill. Dimitri, your final thoughts. Good to have you back, and let everybody know you're a regular member of the show whenever you decide to come by. And hopefully we'll have you every week until Lions season.
Absolutely. Pleasure being here. Good to meet Matt and Don and reconnect with Bill. I appreciate you having me. It is awesome. I could do this all day and all night. So for me, this is easy. So this is probably our last conversation in February. And so as part of what I do for a living, being part of diversity and inclusion, this month, I have had a major role in Black History Month. And for me, it is always landed the same way. It has never been come from a difficult place. It has been two words: recognizing contributions. And this last year in particular, we took it up another level. And what I've learned more and more, because we tried to stay away from the obvious, we made a choice. Let's dig deeper. And so for me, if you're a teacher, you should know Mary McLeod Bethune. You should know who she is, right? If you have open heart surgery or you know someone who's had open heart surgery, you should know Dr. Charles Drew, right? If you're an artist, you should know who Romare Bearden is. If you are a couple trying to have a baby through in vitro fertilization, look up Ernest Just. You need to know. If you want to be a playwright, you should know who Lorraine Hansberry is, right? These people, if you want to be a poet, you have to know Langston Hughes. Or James Baldwin if you're going to be a writer, right? But ultimately, for me, personally, it always comes back to the same dude. Like, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. He is over my shoulder for a reason. This guy. So for me, his career, obviously, we all know the things that happened. People have a very polarizing view, like of 1966 is when I'm talking. He is in the prime of his career. I don't mean just a prime. When people talk about it, and I made a joke last week, I don't want to hear the word GOAT with anyone else. Cassius Clay was the best boxer ever. Hands down. All due respect to the Joe Lewis's and Mike Tyson. No, Cassius Clay. Then another dude named Muhammad Ali came back. He's probably the second best fighter of all time. Right behind Cassius Clay. But what you think about is people talk in the last year, all the things we're going through, you hear terms about bravery and courage. For me, and I have a lot of respect for, say, Colin Kaepernick, for example. When you sacrifice, like real bravery and real courage requires sacrifice. And if you think about in the prime of his career, he gave up everything for what he believed in. How you feel about his cause or his beliefs is irrelevant. I'm talking about the courage to say, I'm willing to pay whatever the price is. He missed quite possibly the best 3 years of his career. Yeah. Untold millions of dollars. And even though he missed that, he gave all that up. His family was hungry. He was borrowing money, right? And he was Muhammad Ali. And people forget that when they first asked him, they didn't even want him to fight. They wanted him to do boxing exhibitions. And he stood up for his beliefs and said, no, if I accept this, I'm going against my beliefs. Right. Courage. I've never had a chance in my life to demonstrate real courage. I thank God every day for that. But I understand what real courage is because of guys like him. And he is unique and special to me, connection with my dad and all that. Courage and bravery require sacrifice. That guy was brave. That guy was courageous because at that time, people didn't understand that organization. People didn't understand that religion. People did not understand him. And he never, ever wavered. And I have so much respect and admiration for him. I'm not saying he was a perfect guy or perfect husband or any of that stuff, but that display of bravery and courage has always been like a part of how I try and carry myself. So the last shot in the month of February, recognizing all those other people I mentioned, I always go out of my way for this guy. And quick story about this. My sister found it at a garage sale for $11. and bought it on the spot and sent it to me and said, I don't know if this is cool or not, but I figured you'd want it. And I was like, well, yeah. So my thoughts often are with Muhammad Ali for a number of reasons, but we're coming up on 5 years since he passed, and I'm thinking about him a lot lately anyway. So my final thoughts are with Cassius Clay.
Just a quick thought before you give your final thoughts, Don. Being in Vietnam, I just actually started boot camp in 1966, and the black soldiers actually respected his decision. And like you say, for some of us, we felt it took more courage for him to do that at that stage of his life than those of us that were actually out in the field and training, to go to Vietnam. So, it was a lot of respect given to Muhammad Ali.
Make no mistake. You guys were brave as hell and courageous as hell. Make no mistake about that, though.
Well, as I tell people, sometimes it was a lot safer over there than it was over here between 1968 and 1971. But that's another story. Don, your final thoughts for the evening.
Final thoughts. So, if you ever want to build a national capital, look up a guy named Benjamin Banneker.
Yep, there you go.
He did a pretty good job.
He did.
DC was a swamp.
Yeah, it was.
Soggy bottom is what they called it at the time.
Yeah. But so anyway, just kind of add on to that. Sorry about last week, guys. I went 13 hours without power.
Oh.
We had a snow. We had it got down to 9 degrees in San Antonio. We had ice, about 7 inches of snow, ice. It melted, and then 2 days later, it came back. we got another 6 inches. So, then after that, 48 hours later, I'm wearing shorts. But it was crazy. The power went out for 13 hours, and then it would come on for the next 3 days. It would come on for like 2 minutes and shut off for several hours. So the only good thing is I had romantic candlelight dinners.
Nice. Nice.
I got to sharpen my domino game. I forgot that I was a pretty damn good domino player back in the days. But I played dominoes. I mean, that's what we do in Texas. I don't know if y'all even know what dominoes are, but
oh yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I played a lot of dominoes, but it's good to be finally back on.
We're black, Don. We're black. You know what
dominoes are huge in our community. Yeah.
Well, it's big in the white community in Texas. So.
Excellent. Sound like you did a great job of making chicken salad out of.
Yeah. But anyway, So
we play spades too, Don.
I love spades.
That and bid whist.
There you go.
Play Texas Hold'em, spades. So gin rummy. Yeah.
There you go.
I got card games. But it's good to be back on the show again, finally, after a little sabbatical from the snow. I did get a report from our school. Of course, I worked the baseball. I worked the scoreboard at the baseball games. We usually play on Tuesdays and Fridays, and now they're thinking about changing the schedule to Monday, Thursday. But I'll know hopefully by tomorrow what my schedule will be like. So if you don't see me for a while, just know that I'm calling balls and strikes on the board at our baseball game.
All right, Don.
Nice.
Hey, good having you back. And good luck with that Texas team, man. Looks like you're going to be in the tourney. So good luck
Finally.
with you. Matt, good to have you on the show, man. Met Matt through a match, it's one where we go to find people that have like interests, and I ran across Matt. Saw he wanted to talk a little sports, so I got in touch with him. So Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into sports, and give us your final thoughts.
Oh man, how did I get into sports? Wow. I guess big thing I guess was just my dad growing up. You know, he had me play every sport. You know, he wanted me to be good at something, and then I ended up being good at cross country. So I'm sure he was really disappointed after all of that. It really was a great way for me and my dad to bond. Really, he's been gone for about 3 years now, and that's kind of one of the things I really miss about him is you know, being able to sit down and just, you know, talk sports with them and you know, be able to heckle each other about it. You know, you know, he didn't have like a favorite team or anything like that. He would just be like, who do you think's gonna win? And I would say, and he would pick the opposite just to, you know, just to give me spite, you know. So you know, and being from Virginia and being a Virginia boy, it's just funny. I don't like very many Virginia teams. You know, I like the Rams. I like the Chicago Bulls. You know, I like all these, you know, like random teams, even though I grew up in Virginia. But it was one of those things where everybody was like a Cowboys fan or a Redskins fan or Washington football team fan. Sorry. And it, you know, one of those things where I was like, man, I want to be like everybody else, you know? So, kind of just went on my own, and I stuck with it ever since because I didn't want to be a bandwagon fan, you know. So, but my final thoughts, I guess, is I really appreciate you know, you guys letting me come and talk with you guys. I feel like I'm surrounded by very intelligent people, and you know. I hopefully I didn't bring the podcast down too much with some of what I was saying. You know, I tried to be as knowledgeable as possible, but I you know, I'd be, you know, honored to ever come back again. If you invite me again, I definitely would come back because I enjoy doing this. You know, I started doing podcasting for my own, you know, personal well-being, for, you know, my mental health, and just to, you know, have something to get away from everything else in the world and kind of, you know, just be with like-minded people like yourself and kind of just have some fun. So I definitely would love to come back ever again if you ever invite me. You guys are definitely more than welcome to come on me and my friend's podcast. I know it doesn't have my name down here, but that's the name of the podcast. It's called Sports Harder Podcast. You can listen to it on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts. We have a YouTube channel now that we do, so you can just look it up on YouTube and watch it. I've had some guests from that website that you mentioned that you found me on. I've had a couple people come on and be guests with me because of that. So it is a great website to find other people that do podcasts.
Matchmaking.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, just you know, check out our podcast. We'd always love to have people comment and participate. We do contests and everything. We're going to do a March Madness contest here coming up soon. We have a local artist in Utah, because my friend who does it lives in Utah. There's a local artist in Utah that's going to give some of his portraits as prizes for the March Madness contest. So, you know, you guys can participate in it, or, you know, let anybody know that would want to participate. You know, just send them our way. We'd appreciate it.
I will. Hey guys, thanks so much for coming and talking sports with us. This is our last show for February, and look forward to seeing everybody in March. Matt, I will be sending you an invitation. Dimitri, you know, you have your standing invitation. Don, hey, whenever, you know, we all know that you do a lot with youth sports, so whenever you can stop by, that's always good. Bill, I know you have some drafts coming up soon.
So
you want to give us a plug?
I'm about to try to like semi-sports flirt with Demetrius. What are you doing this weekend, Demetrius? What's your weekend look like?
Whatever you want, I'm available. I love talking sports. You tell me where to be.
So Demetrius and I are going to do maybe a little bit of Detroit Lions history will creep in too, but we're definitely going to do a Lions draft, and we'll alternate.
Sweet.
What odds are evens, but we'll each pick for one round until we get through all the rounds. And then I have the weekend prior to the NFL draft, the 7th annual mock draft to Palooza. If you are interested in being a GM, well, let me know. Okay, we'll talk. So you get one NFC and one AFC team. You need to submit, because we're freaks about this, submit a board, the whole thing. We're doing this up like psychos.
I'm in.
A little write-up of your draft philosophy, all that good stuff, because we're a little bit bent. So it's gonna be nuts. And we're gonna do that sucker. We're gonna do all 7 rounds because it's crazy people. So yes, it is a big event. It takes a whole weekend, and there are prizes. So I go back later, and it takes a year, but I look back. Yeah, because we're nuts. Right. And so you might get a bottle of wine. We'll figure it out. You might get a card. Who knows? But you get something, and then there'll be a second and a third. I got that going. For those who are into Black history or Black football history, if you go to Twitter and put in hashtag Black football history and click on it, you will see a bunch of stuff I've written. I mean, a bunch. About Bud Holland, about William Henry Lewis, about if it was Paul Robeson, if it was a figure in Black football history. If I haven't gotten to them yet, I'm going to try to get to them. Coaches, players, front office people, all kinds of foolishness. But years and years and years and years and years and years worth of stuff I've posted about Black football history. So if you're into that, man, go nuts. But yes, it's always a pleasure. Yes, I'm in like 3 or 4 different mock drafts because I'm a crazy man. But mine, the one that has my name on it, is the 7th annual Mock Draft-A-Palooza, and it's going to be awesome.
Please, I'm all in.
All right, guys. Well, everybody, make sure you have a great weekend. Be safe, and I will see you right here again next week on the Sports Crib. Have a great night, everyone.
Good one, guys.
Right.
You're about to get a phone call, Demetrius.